Hi, everyone, and welcome to Teens in Politics, the podcast where teens discuss their views on political issues that are happening in the world right now. My name is Alphin, and today we will be discussing LGBTQ plus terms, laws, and rights. To discuss this topic, we have Daniel, Allison, Sitlali, Amber, me, and Layla. We would also like to mention that some of the topics that we talk about can be very controversial. We respect everyone's opinions, and if you find yourself disagreeing, you're free to stop listening to the podcast. Once again, we respect everyone's opinions. Thank you and enjoy today's episode.
Today we're going to be discussing LGBTQ plus topics, such as what the term means in recent events that have affected the community. Each of the letters represent a sexuality or gender. L represents lesbian. A lesbian is a woman who's attracted to other women. The G represents gay. Gay is a man who's attracted to other men. B represents bisexual. Bisexual is someone who's attracted to both men and women. T represents transgender. Transgender is someone who identifies with another gender besides what they were assigned at birth. This can mean a transgender man, a transgender woman, or even someone who is non-binary, which is someone who basically doesn't have a gender, doesn't really fit into boy or girl, so they're somewhere in the middle. Q represents queer or questioning. Queer is someone who is not straight or cisgender. Cisgender basically means a person who still identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth. Questioning is someone who is questioning their gender or sexuality. I represents intersexual. Intersexual is a person who is born with a reproductive or sexual anatomy that does not fit the boxes of female or male. A represents asexual or ally. Asexual is an individual who does not experience or experiences a low level of sexual desire. Ally is a person who identifies as cisgender and straight and believes in social and legal equality for the LGBTQ plus community. Plus is an umbrella term to represent everybody who is not represented in the first letters. And this could include pansexual, which is a person who is attracted to people, not gender. So they like everyone, basically, men, women, non-binaries, gender fluid people.
The first topic we will be talking about today is LGBTQ plus marriage rights.
For a long time, the LGBTQ plus community has been fighting for marriage rights in the USA. On June 15, 2015, Supreme Court ruled same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states. In October of 2020, court calls for a challenge against same-sex marriage rights, claiming it was a violation to freedom of religion, First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That's pretty harsh. I mean, how can that be against the First Amendment? Okay, so the First Amendment, we have RAPS, if I'm correct, right? Religion, assembly, petition, press, and the S was for speech. Okay, and so they said it was a violation against the First Amendment. Which one, though? Religion, why is it so bad? I mean, okay, in the Bible, there are places that it says, God doesn't like that, the same thing. But then we have right to religion for everybody, right? Everyone has a right. And so there's a different religion for everybody. And so some people are atheists. Okay, what do? Can they do it while other people can't? That doesn't make sense.
I agree on that. While you were talking about it and talking about the First Amendment, I sort of had the same thought, everybody has a different religion.
Well, I think if it's what one wants to do, then we should have the ability to do it. I don't think anyone should have control over everyone else regardless of what you believe, even though there is freedom of religion, though I don't think that freedom of religion should necessarily relate to anyone else. If it's an individual freedom, I don't think it's supposed to affect anyone else.
So that First Amendment, I was just thinking, shouldn't it mean that gay people should be able to get married? Isn't that kind of how it works? What is it, land of the free sort of thing? Why is it so important? I mean, why are people so bothered that gay people can't get married? Is it bothering you personally? Do you think by preventing people from getting married, that means that they won't, love each other, or they'll just start being straight because, oh man, we can't get married?
I mean, honestly, though, when you think about it, America is known as, quote unquote, free country, right? It's free for everybody and stuff like that. So like if we can't have same-sex marriage, like what? And also Barack Obama, president before Donald Trump, was like okay with it. He was like, all right, we'll take steps to making LGBTQ like same-sex marriages. And what does Trump do when he joins? He's like, no, no, no. Like he literally takes back every right that they gained, and they gained it so quickly too, compared to like so many other historical like petitions and stuff, especially like the BLK movement too. Comparing to this, like the LGBTQ plus community, they got rights pretty quickly, right? Like compared to other people. And so like, I mean, when you think about it, it's a great accomplishment that they got. And then Trump was just like, you know what? Let me just take all that back, have fun, y'all. Have fun getting back there again.
On that note, I'd like to touch on the fact that he made discrimination legal. He made it completely legal for people to get killed for being trans. And in some states, of course, there's literally a law that someone can kill you for being trans, or someone can kill you because they think you're being violent because you're trans, quote unquote. But that's insane. That's crazy. And he made it legal for homeless shelters to turn away trans people. And he put out this whole thing about like how to spot a trans woman. That is just like so awful. How can a person be so controlling? Like just because he can. I'm pretty sure that man has never had a problem with a trans individual in his whole entire life. But why did he do that? Why? I don't understand it.
And like another problem with that is that even though like there are some states that are trying to, I guess, take steps to get better, but a lot of states don't have specific rules to protect LGBTQ people. Like there's also like there's hate towards it, but there's also not specific protections, which is what they need, right?
And honestly, everyone deserves an equal chance. Every person is a human being. They were born from a womb. Like everyone deserves an equal chance.
If you're like listening to this and you're maybe thinking, well, like LGBTQ people, they're so sheltered. I mean, everything is about them nowadays. Like everybody is like bi. That's not true. I'd like to explain just a little bit. Like all these years of discrimination, you might think things are better. You might think things are like great for LGBTQ people. I mean, like they got marriage legalized, they're getting all these rights, but at the same time, they're getting all these rights taken away. They get rights and then they get taken away just like that. And marriage was almost taken away from us. I mean, it's getting worse. And it got better for a while, but it's getting worse. And I really hope you understand that.
And like Alfin said, everyone deserves an equal chance, I guess you could say. I don't see what the big deal is with same-sex marriage. It's not bothering you. They're not doing anything wrong. I don't know why some people are so focused on other people's lives. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, from touching on your topic, Amber, I just want to talk back about it. Because okay, you said it's not wrong, okay? And from perspective of different people, it is not wrong. I personally have what do you call it? A mix between it. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's right. I'm just it's happening and it's there, and it's our choice to do something about it or let it happen. It is our choice, honestly. But like I said, everyone has a chance. Everyone is a human being, and everyone has their own mistakes. You can't be you're a hypocrite and be I ain't your friend, and be you're gay, so I ain't your friend. It's not we're saying that to your friend. You're you're a hypocrite, so I ain't your friend, think about it. When you think so much about it, you're they're not that different. They are just the same person. It's just they feel differently, or they think differently than you. But that's normal. That's literally everyday life.
Along that line, I'd like to talk about how the whole thing is about gender, right? Boys like boys, stuff like that. But gender is a social construct. Is what's so funny. Is we literally made this up. We made up this word and we assigned it to people because of the way they look and the way their bodies look. And I think that's so hilarious that people are so bothered by this thing that we made up. We literally made it up. Some old white guy made it up a trillion years ago because he wanted to feel superior or something. I don't know. It's just it's hilarious.
Also, before we had, I think 5 years ago, or probably back, when we were younger, we had a problem with girls dressing as tomboy. Do you guys remember when we had that tomboy problem? Bro, was it bad? Girls couldn't dress as boys. it's not even like we weren't even dressing as boys. It was just like wearing shorts, wearing like not wearing earrings or stuff. Like that's dumb.
See, the thing with that is clothes, in my opinion, but I'm sure most of you feel the same. Clothes have no gender. I mean, I don't understand why people are so mad over a piece of clothing. It's cloth. So what's the big deal with it is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like definitely agree with you. Like, who decided to like get makeup and be like, this is for women, not for men? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like stuff like that. And like you said, clothes to literally a piece of cloth. You know.
I think we all make like great points for the next discussion. Now we're going to talk about some research that we found involving LGBTQ marriage rights.
Early years same-sex marriage bans. In 1970, law student Richard Baker and librarian James McConnell applied for a marriage license in Minnesota. Clerk Gerald Nelson rejected their application because they were same-sex couple, and a trial court upheld this decision. Baker and McConnell appealed, but the state Supreme Court affirmed the trial judge's decision in 1971 in Baker versus Nelson. The couple appealed again, but the U.S. Supreme Court in 1972 declined to hear the case. This ruling effectively blocked federal courts from ruling on same-sex marriage for decades, leaving the decision solely on the hands of the states.
In the late 1980s and early 1990s, same-sex couples saw the first signs of hope on the marriage front in a long time. In 1989, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed an ordinance that allowed homosexual couples and unmarried heterosexual couples to register for domestic partnerships, which granted hospital visitation rights and other benefits. The Defense of Marriage Act. In response to Hawaii's 1993 court decision in Baer versus Lewis, the U.S. Congress in 1996 passed the Defense of Marriage Act. Even if a state made gay marriage legal, same-sex couples still wouldn't be able to file income taxes jointly, sponsor spouses for immigration benefits, or receive spousal Social Security payments, among many other things.
3 years later, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize gay marriage, when the Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled that same-sex couples had the right to marry in Goodridge versus the Department of Public Health. The state finally introduced this country to gay marriage, minus the federal benefits, when it began issuing same-sex marriage licenses on May 17, 2004.
United States versus Windsor. In 2007, New York couple Edith Windsor and Thea Spire wed in Ontario, Canada. When Spire died in 2009, she left her estate to Windsor since the couple's marriage was not federally recognized. Windsor didn't qualify for tax exemption as a surviving spouse, and the government imposed $363,000 in estate taxes. Windsor sued the government in late 2010. In 2012, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that DOMA violated the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, and the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear arguments for the case. The following year, the court ruled in favor of Windsor, ultimately striking down Section 3 of DOMA.
Obergefell versus Hodges. Though the U.S. government could no longer deny federal benefits to married same-sex couples, other parts of DOMA were still intact, including Section 2, which said that states and territories could refuse to recognize the marriages of same-sex couples from other states. Soon enough, however, DOMA lost its power thanks to the historic Obergefell versus Hodges. The case involved several groups of same-sex couples who sued their respective states, which were Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee, for the state's bans on same-sex marriage and refusal to recognize such marriages performed elsewhere.
Full marriage equally attained. As with the United States versus Windsor, conservatives Justice Anthony Kennedy sided with Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan in favor of same-sex marriage rights, ultimately making gay marriage legal across the nation in June 2015. Northern Ireland is the most recent country to legalize gay marriage in October 2019. A Pew Research Center poll in 2001 found that 57% of Americans opposed same-sex marriage, and only 35% supported it. 15 years later, in 2016, a Pew poll found almost the complete opposite. Americans supported same-sex marriage by a margin of 55%, 37%. So that concludes our research for marriage rights for LGBTQ+. Our next topic will be LGBTQ+ military rights.
First, we're going to start with the background. For decades, transgender people were prohibited from serving openly in the U.S. military based on outdated and discriminatory medical standards. However, following a year-long intensive working group studying the policy and readiness implications, the Pentagon lifted the ban on transgender people serving openly in the U.S. military on June 30, 2016, acknowledging that it is in the military's best interest to recruit and retain the best troops regardless of their gender identity. In January 2018, openly transgender recruits were able to join the military for the first time, despite attempts by the Trump-Pence administration to block them. On June 26, 2017, President Trump posted a series of tweets in the early morning hours announcing that the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. Soon after the announcement of the ban, multiple lawsuits were filed challenging its constitutionality. In response, several federal courts issued injunctions preventing the Trump-Pence administration from implementing the ban while the cases proceeded. However, on January 22, 2019, the Supreme Court lifted the injunctions. The administration began implementing the ban on April 12, 2019. While the Pentagon has falsely claimed that the ban is not about transgender people, but instead gender dysphoria, the Mattis Implementation Report is a complete ban on transgender military service. It would prohibit transgender people from joining the military, and it would prohibit anyone currently in the military from transitioning genders. Fit to serve. Transgender troops have been serving openly and successfully since 2016, including hundreds who have deployed to combat zones. The chiefs or staff to each military branch have testified that there have been no negative impact on readiness. The policy allowing transgender troops to serve openly did not grant any special exceptions. Transgender service members were held to the exact same rigorous standards as every other service member.
Adoption. Adoption agencies should be able to reject gay couples, Trump administration argues. The Trump administration submitted a brief to the Supreme Court on Wednesday arguing that a taxpayer-funded organization should be able to refuse to work with same-sex couples and others whom the group considered to be in violation of its religious belief. The brief was filed by the Department of Justice in the case of Fulton v. City of Philadelphia, which centers on the refusal of Catholic Social Services, a religious nonprofit that operates a child welfare agency in Philadelphia, to place adoptive and foster children with same-sex couples in violation of the city's non-discrimination ordinance.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about adoption laws and how they relate with LGBTQ community. So to start off, we've heard many things about like how many gay people can't adopt kids because of some very weird laws, I guess.
So basically, there was this whole lawsuit about, I think it was an adoption place that wouldn't let this gay couple adopt a baby because of religion reasons. They were like a Catholic adoption center or whatever, and they wouldn't let a couple adopt a baby because they were gay.
How do you feel about it? Like, do you agree with it? Like, which side do you stand on?
Any couple is a good couple unless they're like drug addicts or something. So if there's these children that like need homes and that like have no families, basically, why not give them to a perfectly good family? I saw a video earlier today that was like explaining why it's good for gay people to have children, because they tend to be more understanding and just all around better parents, more accepting. Their children feel more comfortable. Yeah. We also talked about this in a previous podcast about how this could also lead to like other issues like homelessness and like drug problems, because if a child goes too long without getting adopted, they turn 18, they get put on the streets, that's just more problems for everyone, including them, which easily could have been avoided if they had gotten adopted, even by a gay couple.
And also, if you look at the facts and about it, it's more likely for gay people to adopt than heterosexual couples, right? I think that's how you say it, heterosexual. And that just proves everyone else's point. Like, there's so many kids out there that need homes because some people have kids and they're like, you know what? I don't want this child anymore. And that's also another topic that we should talk about, but not in this podcast. But back to the point of adopting, I think gay people any couple, as Danny said, should be able to adopt unless they have problems in their family, like abusive couples. There's something wrong with that family. Other than that, like if they're able to adopt with like good housing and everything, like why can't they adopt? Like even with religion reasons. Okay, if you're so religious, do you not see that children are being saved? And if you think like that, then it should be fine for you. If you're so religious, you should be able to see that point of view too.
I'd like to mention that the majority of people adopting kids are gay couples that can't reproduce on their own unless one of the partners is like transgender. And even then, in a lot of cases, they've gotten, they went through testosterone therapy or estrogen therapy and they can't reproduce anymore. So the majority of people adopting kids are homosexual couples and, like heterosexual couples who can't reproduce. But if we just ban all gay couples and gay families from adopting children, then there'd be a lot more children that needed to be adopted. The rates would go through the roof because they're the ones that need the children. I also agree with Alvin. If you're like Catholic, if you're Christian, if you're religious, don't you see that like this child is obviously troubled? This child needs a family. And wouldn't you want to put your religious beliefs aside to give this child a home, no matter what their religious beliefs are? I don't care if they're like satanic. It doesn't matter because that child needs a home and that family needs a child.
I mean, regardless of race, religion, and sexuality, everyone deserves a home. And there's so many people that are homeless just out there. And as Danny said earlier, and in our other podcast, after you turn 18, kids that were in adopting homes, they get put out after 18. Because kids in foster care, after the age of 18, they have to leave because there is no like space and stuff. And we talked about how we need to start like a fund or something so that when they go out, they're not doomed to fail. When they leave, what are they supposed to do?
You have to think about also the not the majority, but the percent of people who didn't make it out of the foster system by the time they were 18. They might actually, go to college because just because they're in foster care doesn't mean they don't go to school. So they might actually go to college. They might, get a job, have their own life. But how many of those do you think actually make it through college and commit themselves with no family to motivate them? If it weren't for my family, I would have literally no goals. I would be ambitionless. I wouldn't care where I would go in life. And because of my father, preaching it to me since I was like 3 years old that I need to go to college, I'm going to go to college and I know I'm going to have a good future because of it. But those kids have no motivation. There's no one there having their back and telling them that they can do this. They're smart enough. They're good enough. They don't have family to do that.
Many people don't realize how loved they are. Everyone in here is loved by someone in your family. And you might not realize it, but being loved and when you're not loved, there is a very big difference and you feel it. And when you feel it, that's when you know. And so you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. Think about it from their point of view. They need a parent. And if someone is willing, let them. And as we said before, if you have religious beliefs, think the other way. If you're so religious, okay, and I'm coming from a religious point of view too, because I am also religious. When you think about it, if you want to go back into history from the Bible, like there is so many places where people were like, okay, I see what God said, but I'm going to twist his words and put it in put it the way I want. And that's literally what y'all are doing. If you guys are so religious and you care about these kids, then you can do that again.
And a lot of these kids not that they're not treated fairly, but of course they could have a much better life with these families. Like some of these adoption centers, like they don't have the best resources to take care of these kids. So the best option would be logically for a couple to raise them, any couple. It doesn't matter what sex they are, they're the same sex or they're opposite. everyone should be able, like these couples should be able to adopt and these children should be able to have a family.
And when you look at all the facts, everything comes back to the same thing. Everyone deserves a home, and some people are willing to give, so take the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Teens in Politics. If you have any topics you would like to listen to, put your ideas in the comments section. All our sources for research will be posted in the description box below, along with our contact information. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tune in for our next podcast. Have a great rest of your day.